Before the world of high horsepower, thrilling side-by-sides ever existed, these machines were built for a single purpose: to tackle jobs and hard work. Hey folks, and welcome to TK Power Sports. Today we're going to compare two different utility side-by-sides, and we're going to see exactly how hard these things can work. On my right side we have the Kubota RTV-XG850, and on my left the Can-Am Defender XT HD9. And in this video, we're gonna load up the bed with rocks, actually do some dump runs to see how these things handle, and then we will hit the trail and find out which one is also more fun, so make sure you stay tuned. Let's start by looking at the power plants here, and like most of these machines, access to the engines is under the dump beds here at the back. And these are kind of similar, but there is sort of one key difference in the engine layout. Over here on the Can-Am, that thing is a V-twin. It's 976 cc's, and it is putting out 65 horsepower and 59 pound-feet of torque, and that is sent through a CVT. Now looking over here at the Kubota, this is also two cylinders, but you're going to notice that they are next to each other, so this is not the V layout. This is 851 cc's, and it's making 54 horsepower and 48.7 pound-feet of torque. And one other thing I want you to notice on the Kubota, access to that engine is definitely better than over here on the Can-Am. The bed just dumps farther, and you can get right in there and get to everything a little bit easier. And overall, I do think maintenance was more of a priority for Kubota, just looking at that and then looking at some of the other access points. So I do appreciate that. The other thing I want to say too is this is the HD9 power plant in the Can-Am. We could have the HD7 here, which would probably be more of an apples to apples comparison. However, once you hear the prices, well, that might change your mind there too. And yes, we are going to do a drag race in this video, so make sure you stay tuned to the end for that. Looking at overall styling, these things are quite different. Over here with our Can-Am, it looks aggressive. It looks like a lot of other kind of pissed off, angry side-by-sides you see on the market. Now this is the XT model, so we are getting this big bumper up front and the winch down below. But the one biggest difference I see is how raked this windshield is compared to the Kubota, which is almost straight upright. Everything over here is much more boxy and squared off, and I think it looks a little angry, but it doesn't have that sort of mean, pissed off look that a lot of side-by-sides do today. And plus we have the Rancher package over here, so that brings along this big beefy steel bumper with the plastic guards on there. So why don't you just drop in the comments right now and let me know which one straight up looks better to your eyes. Let's look at overall size now, and they are quite similar. So the Can-Am comes in with a length of 125.7 inches, a width at 62 inches, and a height at 78 inches, while the wheelbase is 83 inches. Now compare that to the Kubota. It's 109.6 inches long, so a little bit shorter, 63.2 inches wide, so a little bit wider, and 79.5 inches tall, so just a little bit taller, although the wheelbase comes in at 80.5 inches, so it does have a few inches less on the wheelbase. Let's compare tires and suspension here. So looking at the rubber on our Can-Am, we get a set of 27-inch XPS tires, which are fairly aggressive. Over here on the Kubota, 25-inch mag off-road tires, not quite aggressive and just not quite as big either. Then for suspension, the setups are the same. We have dual A-arms all the way around. Over here on the Kubota, you're getting 9 inches of travel in the front, 8.5 inches of travel in the back. The Can-Am is good for 10 inches of suspension travel, both front and rear. And then when it comes to ground clearance, the Can-Am takes that as well. This is listed at 11 inches of ground clearance, while the Kubota is listed at just 9.4 inches of ground clearance at the rear diff. Now, talking about differentials, both of these have rear diff lockers. The Can-Am, it's a switch. On the Kubota, it's actually a foot-operated manual diff lock, which is pretty neat. And then when it comes to the front differentials, the Kubota uses a limited slip front diff, while the Can-Am uses a Visco lock front diff. So both of these are sort of automatic locking front differentials. The Can-Am should truly lock, while a limited slip will never totally lock up, but they should be similar once we get out there on the trail and get a chance to feel them. Let's look at the business end now, the dump beds, and yes, both of these do dump. Our Kubota bed here is a little bit bigger. You're getting about 2 inches more length, almost 3 inches more width, although it is about half an inch shorter than the walls over here on the Can-Am. Still, bigger over here. And the other thing you're going to notice, this is an actual steel bed with a truck bed liner material, whereas over here, this thing is all plastic. So let's take a closer look at the Kubota bed right now. To open this tailgate, you have to grab little latches on both sides at the same time, and down it comes. I like that even the tailgate is coated in that material too. And then one feature we have today that I have to show you is this guy, the bed extender. This is part of the Rancher Edition package, which we have here, but you flip that down and you're buying yourself at least another 6 to 8 inches of length to be able to pack things in here. And we're gonna load this thing up with rocks, and we're absolutely going to use this bed extender. Now, another thing you do have is D-rings, just 4 of them down in the floor, but it is important to have something to tie down to. And then the other addition to the Rancher package is up here, these bed rails, yet another place where you could secure bungee cords or straps to make sure you're holding everything down. Now let's look at the Can-Am. And on our model here today, we do have the deluxe headache rack. That's from the Can-Am accessories catalog, but I really do like it. We don't have anything strapped in here right now, but you could strap tools across here, you could strap a shotgun across here, anything you're carrying with you that you sort of want up out of your way, you can strap right onto the headache rack. And then as the name suggests, if you did happen to have something big and heavy back here in your bed and you slammed on the brakes, this is gonna protect your cab and protect the back of your head to make sure nothing is slamming into you. So I do like the headache rack here. Now we can look at the tailgate. This is more typical what you find on a pickup truck, just the single handle in the middle. One little feature they added on here is a ruler on the edge to help you measure things. It's interesting, they also give you a tailgate load rating on the Can-Am of 250 pounds, so they are very specific. Looking inside the bed, you are getting hard tie downs in each one of the corners. You get these little bucket cutouts up here, so if you are actually transporting buckets, they'll sit in there. And then the other thing the Can-Am does, Kubota doesn't do, is all these different dividers in the wall. So you see these big cutouts in the plastic, you're able to cut lumber and then install it across to give yourself different bed dividers. And Can-Am has many accessories that will slot down into these top holes here too that you can add on to your bed. So sort of when it comes to sort of functionality, Can-Am has more accessories and more things that can be added than the Kubota, but the Kubota is bigger and arguably stronger thanks to the fact that it is steel. Now, if you want to know the numbers, both of these beds are rated to carry 1,000 pounds. So the actual rating is the exact same. And then while we're back here, I do have to mention towing. Over here on a Defender, off of the 2-inch hitch receiver, you can pull 2,500 pounds. Over here on our Kubota, also a 2-inch hitch receiver, but this thing is rated at just 2,000 pounds of towing. Let's look at the interiors now with a focus on storage. So let's start with the seats. Over here, the driver's seat doesn't flip up or down, but what it does do is adjust forward and back, which is always appreciated. You do have that center seat right there, but if you're not carrying somebody, flip this little guy down, and you get a couple cup holders there and a little console to hold your stuff. And then on the passenger seat side, this does flip up, revealing this huge cargo box down here, which is quite deep. You could fit a lot of stuff down in there, 13 pounds of stuff to be exact, according to Can-Am. And the other feature Can-Am has is that can come out and come with you. So if you pack your tools in there for a day of work, you take that out, and you bring your tools with you. And then plus, look how much floor space that opens up once it's out of there. And that's only one of 2 removable boxes. Over here, just above your lower glove box, you get all this storage. And this one can also come with you, which I really love. It almost looks like a little lunchbox. You could definitely pack your lunch in there and take that with you. I think that's really smart, innovative thinking by Can-Am. Strap it back down and it's good to go. Now again, talking storage down below, I love these huge molded storage bins here into the plastic. You always have, you know, bits and bobs, things you're holding on to when you're out working, so those are nice. A big storage bin right here in the middle of the dashboard as well, and then a set of cup holders on either side. So overall, the storage here does feel good. I want to mention a couple other features. You might have noticed the one above my head. We do have the optional accessory JL audio system here, which is pretty ridiculous. We get a polycarbonate rear windshield, and then we get a polycarb front windshield, but the front windshield does have a trick up its sleeve. It is actually, got to turn the key on, powered. Quite slow, but hey, it gets the job done. You know what, it might seem unnecessary, but it does make this thing sort of feel more luxurious because I don't even have to get out, undo any latches. I just sit on my butt, hit a switch, and up goes my windshield. And oh yeah, I can already feel that breeze coming right through the cab. So we do have some pretty neat features here on the Can-Am, but the most important thing is that we have a ton of accessible and usable storage. There's one unfortunate thing here on our polycarbonate windshield where all these screws have been attached. Most places, the windshield is cracked. Cracked there, cracked there, cracked there. This could very well just be a overexcited tech who tightened these too much, but it also seems like it might be a design issue. So yeah, that's not great to see on a brand new unit. We already got cracks around each one of those screws. Looking inside the Kubota here, things are definitely quite different. On the Can-Am, you get those big beefy half doors. Over here, just these little baby doors, and there's only a handle on the inside. And these doors are hinged at the front, where Can-Am hinges them at the back. I think the hinged at the rear is for better access. However, this door opens nice and wide, totally gets out of your way, so I don't have an issue with that either. Now, looking at the storage, these seats do flip up, and you get these nice storage bins down here. I do appreciate having those for sure. The one problem or one difference with this flip up seat is because the driver's side flips, it can't be adjusted. So unlike the Can-Am, this is a fixed seating position. And the Can-Am seats are also just a bit taller. They come further up your back and they're a little even more contoured. These have a bit of contouring to them, but the seats in the Can-Am, yeah, they're a little more comprehensive, shall we say. Now looking at the storage up front here, a pair of cup holders. We do get a glove box, which is nice and deep in there. And what I really like about this glove box is this locking mechanism, kind of a screw motion. Feels really good, and it feels a little more substantial than the plastic stuff that's over there on the Can-Am. Outside of that, though, I'm a little disappointed that there's not more storage down below. Can-Am has those big molded boxes down here. In the Kubota, you're not really getting anything down there whatsoever for storage. And then the Can-Am also has those molded spots up in the dash. The Kubota doesn't have that. So when it comes to interior storage, the Defender is definitely the winner. Now talking about some of the features here, we also have a polycarbonate rear windshield with this tiny little vent in it, which is really cute. And then the polycarb front, and this is flip down way faster than the Can-Am. Boom, flips down just that easily. Leaves the half windshield here for you, but gives you the nice ventilation from having that section open. So I do like this, and honestly, from talking about myself, I don't need the powered windshield. This would be more than enough, and you might as well save a couple of bucks because you can still do this from a seated position. Now, another feature I like here on the Kubota quite a bit are the mirrors. These are also part of the Rancher package, so they're not standard, but you get your big center mirror and then these great side view mirrors. Any machine that has a dump bed, it means that you're going to be backing into places, so having these mirrors is quite crucial for your maneuverability. So you know what, folks? That's really it for sort of our static look at these two machines. Why don't we get to work? We actually have a real job that we have to get done here at our cottage. We bought some big, beautiful stones that we're going to haul down to the beach and rebuild our rock wall at the edge of our beach. And what a perfect way to show off these two machines today. We're going to load up the beds with as many rocks as we can get in there, and then we have to go down, do some really tight maneuvering around our cottage, get down to the beach, and then dump them. We're going to show you all of that, and I'm going to talk through the whole process to try and decide which one of these is better when you're actually out there doing work. All loaded up, time to work now. So first of all, our cottage sits at the bottom of this steep gravel driveway, so I'm in low range. I'm still braking, but I'm going to lift off the brake. This is just engine braking. I want to feel the engine braking with the weight. Oh, I'm picking up quite a bit of speed. That was 10 kilometers an hour before I braked. So it definitely didn't freewheel at all, but it did pick up quite a bit of speed with all these rocks in the back. Now let's see how it handles. I might have to crush Dad here. Look out! Turn, baby, turn! Turn!
You could have inherited just then.
I might have made it, but I'm not going to make it fully, so I am going to do a 3-point here. Beautiful. You definitely feel the weight. The engine's working, even just to move it a little. Oh, and I'm not going to quite make this one either. Now at this point I do want to say that the slow speed throttle modulation here is just not good. It has a tendency to go from kind of nothing to wham, like full power really quickly, and that's what I felt right there coming forward. You can be gentle, but you really have to focus on it. It's not natural for this machine to be super gentle. Now there's a real tight fit right there. Love having the mirrors to make sure I could fit through that spot. The power does feel good. I won't say it doesn't feel good. I can definitely move the load without much trouble. But yeah, modulation is not the best here. So one more tight turn here. The idea, what we're going for, is we're dumping these rocks down onto the beach, and then we're going to rebuild our rock wall. Okay, and parking brake on. Let's see how it dumps. And we do have these nice handles. Oh my gosh.
Okay, are we locked?
I'm unlocked, man.
Am I unlocked?
Handle goes up, and then the little metal.
I'm unlocked.
Sounds like it. Dude, it's just heavy. We might have to move some manually before we can dump. Let's try one more time.
Again.
On 3, 1, 2, 3. Yes! Yes! Okay, not bad.
You got one. You got a hanger on you.
A hanger? Oh yeah. See ya. Yeah, I mean, that was a lot of weight, and that gas assist shock is really not doing anything. So that's another important point. If you're moving a lot of weight, you need a buddy to help you dump. All right, well, it got the job done. Not a bad size load. Now we go get the Can-Am, see how it does. And now we're loaded up here in the Defender. So coming down my gravel driveway, have it in low range and work mode. And it's very interesting. So I'm being held right now about 4 kilometers per hour. And I gotta tell you, the engine braking here is straight up better. Now the one thing that is happening is when I go slow enough, it does start to freewheel for just a moment, and then it actually revs up the RPM just a little bit, but it's enough that then the belt re-engages. So yeah, the engine braking was better on the Can-Am than on the Kubota. And I have to tell you, look how much I'm gonna clear that rock by. The turning radius also feels much better on the Can-Am too. Like the Kubota, I took 2 points of reverse here. Here on the Can-Am, I think I'm gonna be able to do it with just 1. Yeah, so handling too is a bit better here on the Defender. Now it's a negligible difference, but we are about an inch skinnier here with the Defender as well. So in this really tight spot, it's gonna be noticeable. I'll tell you now though, the one thing I'm missing is those mirrors, man. And I know, to be fair, Can-Am does sell accessory mirrors, so if I wanted them, I could get them. But this is already an XT. It's a upgraded package. Why couldn't you just include them with the package, Can-Am? I'm a big believer in mirrors, and the fact that I couldn't see my rear corner there was sort of tricky. But I'm through. Overall, engine braking and tight maneuverability goes to the Defender. And then work mode, I have to tell you about that. In work mode, the throttle modulation here is excellent. It's so easy for me to be super smooth. And that's another point in favor of the Defender. The Kubota, the modulation is just straight up bad. When you're working in a super tight spot, it's really hard to be uber smooth with it. This thing is the opposite. In work mode especially, it's very easy. And that's what work mode does. It dulls your throttle response so that when you're working in a tight area, you're able to really easily just creep forward and back. Now, this might require a 4-point turn because I'm going to a bit of a different position than I was in with the Kubota. Okay, now one other difference here in the Can-Am, we don't actually have a parking brake, we just have park in the transmission. I don't know, I kind of like a parking brake, especially for a situation like this. I'm parked on a hill with, many hundreds of pounds of rock back there. I feel like the parking brake gives you a bit of extra security. Granted, park in the transmission is holding me here, so it is doing its job. And let's go dump it. Alrighty, so drop Mr. Tailgate. This one should be a hair easier because I don't think there's quite as many rocks here, but we shall find out. You ready? 1,
Yep.
2, 3. Nicely done. And yeah, I would say this one does have a little bit more assist, but also that load was just a little bit smaller too because the bed's a bit smaller.
Is
so
the
that
bed a little shorter?
It's a little shorter, a little skinnier as well.
It just felt like the pivot point was a little further back.
Right, we had more loaded sort of up in the front of the other machine, but the other load was a bit bigger. But overall, I will say I think the Can-Am did just about everything better there than the Kubota did, besides the fact that the load just wasn't quite as big. Let me quickly correct myself. There is a parking brake here in the Defender. It's a little tricky to use. You got to reach down and grab this handle. But yes, that is a proper parking brake. So once again, the Can-Am's a bit better in that way too because you have park in the transmission and you have a parking brake. I want to do a quick after work report now just on the state of these beds because again, they're so different, right? We have steel versus this heavy duty plastic. So let's look at the Kubota first. You definitely have some scrapes into the bed liner, a couple little gouges. For the most part, it's just surface level, but I did notice right here, we already have a little piece of bed liner that's flaking up. And if I was to drop another rock load on there, that would probably come off, and then you're down right to bare metal, which could result in rust. Now, granted, that was probably an issue when it was sprayed. It was probably an air bubble, and then we just, tore it up with those rocks. But still, that's the one issue with the steel bed, is if you do manage to get down to that steel, you're going to be dealing with corrosion. Over here with the plastic bed, the level of damage is the same. It might even be a little bit worse. You can see how many gouges, how many scratches there are in this plastic. So yeah, I think the plastic is more susceptible to the gouging. However, it's just not a big deal. You put a couple little gouges into this plastic and you just reveal more of the plastic, and it's even still painted the same color, so you don't even really notice it. So at the end of the day, although I like the idea of the toughness of this steel bed over here, the plastic bed I think would take the abuse better over time. and it should be less expensive to replace if it did come down to that. Now we're shifting gears. We're here on the trails because it's time to decide which one of these two is more fun if you're just out for a Sunday cruise. And our cruise is going right through some thick mud. So I've got this Defender in low range, 4-wheel drive is engaged. And now we're dropping into the deep water and the mud. Oh, power feels solid. And it's coming in now. Oh, a bit of slip there. Oh, but there's so much power down here at low range. No issue. Coming up the hill over the rocks. I only heard one hit there on the skid plates too. Nice, man. I think that's one of the areas this Can-Am is going to shine too, compared to the Kubota, is just straight up in the clearance here, because it's just better. But coming through there was easy, and it was actually pretty fun. So let's go back and get the RTV and see how it does. Alright folks, dropping into the mud here behind the Can-Am with the RTV. Also in low range, also in 4-wheel drive. Oh, no issues through there. And into the swamp. So power also feels really good. I will say the same thing in the slow speed section though. The modulation is tough. It kind of goes from slow, slow, slow to full power really quickly. But man, it feels really good coming through there. Oop, I had one rub there, another rub there. Oop, big rub there. Oh, big rocket there. I did say this already, but yes, clearance not as good here in the Kubota. So when you're trying to run over big rocks and ruts, you're going to be hitting more of them. But when it just comes to grip and power, they actually felt pretty similar. It's just the way that power comes on. The Can-Am smooth is definitely the name of the game, whereas here in the RTV, it's kind of tricky to be smooth, to be honest. It just has this tendency to want to jump ahead on you. It's a weird spot right in the throttle travel, where right when you get over that spot, it goes, okay, we need max power. So yeah, modulation's not great, but otherwise, so far so good. Oof, another rock there. I think this is gonna be a theme right here. In fact, I'm gonna be nice to the RTV and try to avoid some of these rocks that I don't normally have to avoid, but I don't like dragging the belly on it. Yeah, there we go, a bit of avoidance. And we're back in. Let's take a look under these units now, and yes, this is after we ran them in the mud, so this thing is pretty dirty. So first of all, I point out the tow hooks. Of course, you do have your steel bumper up here, which if you had to attach onto, you could, but there is a nice tow recovery point down here. It's a little bit low, but still, if you do need a lower point to grab the machine, you have that right there. And this is one solid steel skid plate that comes around your front here, so there's no gap whatsoever. I love that. And yes, it is steel. That's my magnet, just to prove it. But as you get back, the entire middle section, well, that's plastic. Now, again, it's not totally fair to call it plastic. It is a composite, so it is heavy duty, but it's nice to have this stuff because it actually slides pretty well over the rocks. And then all the way back here at the rear end, you get one more steel skid plate, and I think those are the two most important areas for the steel, right at the front and right at the back. So great coverage underneath this Can-Am. Now we're looking underneath the RTV. So same as the Can-Am, you get this one solid skid plate and it transfers right over the corner here, right over the front edge, and there's no gap between this guy and the next skid plate here. And these are all steel skid plates. So this is sort of the same difference underneath the Kubota as on top, where Can-Am really does believe in a lot of that high density plastic. Kubota believes in steel everywhere, and when I say everywhere, I mean everywhere. All the way to the back of this thing, it's a steel skid plate. So it depends what you prefer. I do think, again, steel is going to be straight up stronger, probably less resistant to being gouged by a rock. The thing I don't like about the steel is that if you do get hung up on a rock on your belly, it doesn't want to slide that well. And then if it does slide, well, it's going to scrape it and get you right down to bare metal. And again, that could corrode eventually. So it depends sort of what you're looking for in which skid plate package you go with. There's no doubt, though, that Kubota had an eye for being robust, for being strong, and that's what all of these steel skid plates mean. And then just overall coverage, these are both excellent. This is how every side-by-side in ATV should look, fully sealed from front to back, and both of these do look like that, and I appreciate that as well. And now, folks, we're going to compare how fun are these two machines when you're just ripping down a trail. So we're here in the Kubota first. I'm going to put it in two-wheel drive, so I reach down and grab this handle and I pop it up. And that's just another one of the key differences here. Everything here in the Kubota is still manual. You know, you that manual lever for 2 to 4 wheel, the manual foot locking differential. Everything in the Can-Am is at the push of a button. So just a very sort of different feel and philosophy from behind the wheel. But yeah, I've got it in high range, two-wheel drive. Let's floor it and feel the power. And it does, off the line, have just a moment of hesitation, and then you just feel that power come on really strong. And I'll also say that the actual throttle travel, the pedal travel, is not really all that far. So I think that's one of the reasons why the modulation here can be kind of tricky, because there's just not a lot of physical distance for me to play with when I'm using that pedal. All that being said, though, the power does feel quite good. Yeah, it's good, man. It really hustles when you put your foot into it. So I don't think anyone would complain about how much power you have. My only complaint is sort of how the power is delivered, especially in slow speed sort of situations. Now, as we continue down the trail here, one of the other big positives I feel about the RTV, the sight lines. I'm able to sort of look down at my hood. I can see the corners up there really, really clearly. And so I have a really great sense for where the machine is around me. And that can be important for ripping down the trails like this. So those are positives. There's definitely some negatives here though too. A high center of gravity is the first thing that jumps out at me. Coming around these corners definitely feels like if you pushed it hard enough, it would just flop over. So yeah, the CG just feels a little bit tall, which is not that confidence inspiring. And then the suspension, what can you say? It's enough to come out here and have fun, but you find the limits of it quickly. I'm running here at, between 40 and 50 kilometers per hour. And every time I hit a rock, I really, really feel it. You do get some of the front to back bucking as well. And most of that is just a function of not a ton of suspension travel. And really, if you want to have fun with the machine for a long period of time, suspension travel is what you need. And yeah, it's just not quite here. So, can you come out here and have a good time with your RTV on a trail if you just are strictly looking to have fun? Absolutely you can. But the utility side of this machine, the work focus of this machine, it's not hidden whatsoever. You can still tell that that is its number one goal, to do jobs, to do heavy lifting competently. And number two, as a distant number two, is coming out here for a fun ride on a trail. Now let's swap it out for the Defender though, and see if that thing is any more fun than this is. And now it's Can-Am time, so also two-wheel drive, high range. Let's floor it and feel it. Man, and smooth. Smooth is the operative word there. It's really powerful. I would say just as, it doesn't feel way more powerful, but the way the power is delivered is this smooth rush of power, where that Kubota is very much just this really strong hit all of the sudden. And that's good on trail, and as we showed you earlier, it's good for that slow speed modulation. Now I'll talk sightlines here too. Yeah, they're just not as good. The thing with Can-Am, and this is a philosophy of just about every Can-Am side-by-side I've been in, they like for you to really sit inside the machine. So here I got the doors, they're much taller here. I feel like I'm sitting down lower in this side-by-side. I can see the bumper up front, but I can't see those corners because the hood also drops off really aggressively. So yeah, in terms of sort of the overall feel of seeing and knowing where the whole machine is, the Kubota was better for that. And then I've mentioned this already too, but I gotta say it again, the mirrors, there's no mirrors here, and I love having them because they do give you a better sense for where everything is around you. So definitely when it comes to the sightline, that's a point for the Kubota. Just about everything else though, I do have to give it to this Defender. First of all, seat comfort, the Defender is way better. These seats are actually a little bit squishy. They got a bit of suspension to them. The seat back comes up higher on my back. I got a proper headrest back there as well, so if I do fly back, I'm not gonna hit the rear windshield. Yeah, overall seat comfort, way better here. Plus the seats aren't totally upright. There's just a bit of a recline to them, but enough to keep you comfortable. And I'll tell you, if you are going out for a 4, 5, 6 hour ride, seat comfort's gonna make a big difference. And over here, they're just more comfortable. Now, when it comes to the suspension, yeah, you gotta give it here to the Defender too. Hitting these rocks around the same speeds, you just don't feel such a sharp hit. It seems to swallow everything up a little bit better, which means that I'm feeling less of those forces actually in my body. I'm having to counteract for those forces a little bit less in the steering wheel. You're hitting things at high speed, but because the suspension is soaking them up, you just don't really feel them. So that equals a faster ride, and honestly just a more fun ride as well, because you're not being thrown around and you're not taking those hard hits. So the added suspension travel here goes a long way to making this machine feel more fun too. And yes, you can see in front of me, we've hit a Elmer Forest traffic jam. Dad's up there with the tractor moving some brush with the dump trailer. So I'll be free to speed up here again in just a minute. All right, we're moving again, and I gotta talk overall handling now, and that also falls here to the Can-Am, where the Kubota felt top heavy, and going through the corners I could really feel it kind of leaning. This Defender, considering how tall it is, the center of gravity does not feel tall whatsoever. Really feels like it can tuck into a corner. And then the power is right there when you match your foot into it. So yeah, from an overall handling perspective, I gotta give it to the Can-Am as well. And then there's one other thing that is really jumping out at me, and that is the brakes. Here on the Defender, here comes a hard brake. Man, the brakes are immediate, they really grab. Over on the Kubota, the brakes were just fine, but I was cruising at speed and I nailed them, and they do not feel nearly as grabby as what we have here on the Defender. And I think I can finally boil all this down. Once again, it's just a philosophical difference. Can-Am is a company that prides itself on its fun-focused, thrilling side-by-sides, so it brings that knowledge over to the utility world, whereas Kubota is a company that's all about heavy industry, heavy work, getting the job done. So they bring that focus over to the utility side-by-side, which they're trying to make a little bit more fun. So just from that philosophical standpoint, when we're talking about which one is more fun, you gotta give it over here to the Defender as well. But at this point, I'm sure you are wondering, well, if you line them up next to each other and hit the throttle, which one is gonna win in a drag race? And you know we found out, so take a look. Okay guys, time for the drag race. We're here on an empty road. Dad's over there in the Kubota. I'm here in the Can-Am, high range, 2-wheel drive. Let's see what happens. And on go. 3, 2, 1, go. hopefully you guys saw that right there. You know what? The Kubota did take me off the line, and that's what I've been saying all day. It has that hard hit of power right away. The Can-Am, though, smoothly delivered its power, it caught up, and then it was no contest. And the Kubota is speed limited at 64 kilometers per hour, whereas over here in the Can-Am, I just wound it up to 65 miles per hour, which is over 100 kilometers per hour. So yes, top speed wise, I think I could have got some more out of it too, but I was close to top speed. But top speed wise, no contest. The Can-Am takes it, and even though the Kubota hits harder off the line, the Can-Am will still win in the drag race. Well, folks, we are coming to the end of this one. Now, I do have to make one last point, which I think does differentiate these machines quite a bit. Here in our Can-Am, we've had this Defender for about 2 weeks now, and we've already had a couple little nagging issues. Things like the driver's side seat belt, the mechanism gets really sticky and it just doesn't want to work quite right. This upright here for our powered window, the assist shock keeps coming loose at the top end, and then I already showed you guys, you know, our plexiglass is cracked. Whereas over here on our Kubota, this thing honestly feels like it has more in common with our backhoe over there than it does with other side-by-sides, and that is to say it feels overbuilt, robust, and strong. So I can't really comment on long-term reliability. We've only had these things for the better part of a week, but it does just feel like out of the box the Kubota's probably screwed together a little better and therefore should last longer. But you know what? That is important. There's one more important point though, and that is the price. The MSRP of the Kubota in this video is about $28,700 Canadian. On the other hand, the Can-Am is more expensive with an MSRP of around $33,000. Now, the Can-Am is fit with about $10,000 worth of accessories, one of which is pretty crazy. The audio roof costs $4,600 Canadian alone. So if you were to eliminate just those speakers, the prices here would both be right around $28,000. But yes, as you see them built right here, the Can-Am is more expensive. So just looking at these two machines in terms of which one works better, which one has more power, which one is more fun, I do have to tell you that the Can-Am takes the win here. Everything about it, when working correctly, is just better than what's going on over here with the Kubota. You might have the reliability here, but outside of that, I have to give every other factor to this Defender. But you know what, folks? That's it for this one. Now, of course, I need to hear from you. What do you think? Drop into the comments right now. Let me know all of your thoughts on everything you saw in this video. As always, while you're down there too, don't forget to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button so you never miss a video from TK Power Sports, hit join to become a member of our channel, and then come right back here to TK Power Sports to see what we're testing next. See ya.